Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I know if you're trying to watch us live, you're like, wait a minute, Bob, wait, what? It's the Wednesday before the Thanksgiving holiday here in the United States. So we are going live still, just like we always do. However, I don't think anybody's actually watching us, but you will see us on the stream and you will be able to reach out just like always, creationstation@broward.org. And since you're probably only going to be listening to this on the podcast feed, hit the like and subscribe button. What about that, Sonia? I actually remember to say it one time.
We have a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Yeah.
It's certainly worth
It is. So welcome for being here, Sonia. Thank you so much for rounding out our Veterans Month. Yeah, there's some very, very cool stories today. I want to just dive right in, and we're going to get back to some of the cool stuff you're doing at the branch here at the end. But I think we were both pretty impressed with this one.
Yes.
So NASA revealed that they rediscovered an old Cold War city that is currently buried under the ice in Greenland. So this was something that was built back in the 1959. And so it was there, it was used for a short time, and then basically just abandoned, walked away from it. And now they found it again because of scanning from near space, from near Earth orbit. Isn't that awesome?
It's incredible. They had a nuclear reactor there, and I was reading the comments. Somebody was wondering why would they have a nuclear reactor for just 8 years or 9 years, and it turned out that there was no other way they could have power there because it couldn't replenish any fuel.
Yeah. There's just a nuclear reactor floating out there somewhere lost in Greenland. I was like, I wonder how many of these other things are out there floating around in oddball spots around the world that we don't know about because the government put them in a secret base somewhere. Various governments have done that probably. It's a crazy idea. And this was such a fun story because it brought back two other ones. There's one great other story about finding lost Mayan cities scattered throughout the Yucatan and down into Central America. There are just some amazing stuff there. So here is an image from drone footage of, you can see the squares and the rectangles there. Those are actual buildings hidden in the middle of jungle. Everything else is just total jungle there. And by flying these drones, by doing these things over there, they have discovered, okay, well, wait a minute. Here, we now know where all these little Mayan villages are. Not these big, huge pyramids that are pretty obvious and sticking up out of the jungle, but all these little wayward towns. It's like, space is cool.
Well, it's remarkable that they even found stuff at a site where they've been all over it, like Tikal.
Yeah. I mean, places where the people have been trekking through the jungles and probably walked right over some of these buildings because the things just mound right up over them and the jungle is there and you're walking across all this, you're trekking through and around stuff. It is just a crazy, crazy thing. So it took them more than, they found 500 sites within a 30,000 square mile area of southern Mexico, which is just mind-blowing. They were even able to capture that much data that fast and then parse it down and go through and do this. And it's just craziness.
And it's really great that they found a old map that was a leader survey for carbon that they did in 2013. And reanalyzing that data, they found actually 6,674 previously unknown structures.
Yeah. So it's amazing what they could find and what they could do on these little hills. Here's another good example of what you were just talking about there. Here's the edges of the buildings, and here are the different pieces, on the edges of the hills and all the terraces going down where they were growing their food and everything like that. It is just, and like you said, this is part of for carbon capture and tracking forest growth and all those sorts of things. It's a great, great thing. In fact, this there is a book that I read a couple of years ago. It's called Archaeology from Space. We've got it in the library catalog. I highly suggest people check this out. It's from 2019. She does an amazing job of explaining. Basically, her side gig is Indiana Jones from space. And while she never leaves the planet, all of her research stuff does. And between drones and satellite maps and all these things and searching all over the planet for stuff, it's a great, great story. So go check that out at your local library. If you're not down here in Broward, or broward.org/library, and get your free digital card, and you can check out the digital copy from us.
And
Just
if
making
they
sure
don't
you
have
know.
it at your local branch, we can place a hold and bring it for you.
We have physical copies and we have digital copies. So check it out. This other one we need to check out. I'm just baffled. So if you haven't heard about this, and this story is fairly big. It's been out there because it's one of those edgier type stories. It gets people talking and everything like that. So one Instagram influencer versus another social media. We're not going to restrict it to Instagram. It's TikTok and Instagram and all the various places. Because somebody copied her style, she's suing because it looks too much like her vibe.
And what we wonder is, can you copyright a vibe? Because the style that they're using was actually pioneered by what are the Kardashians?
Yeah, I mean, well, not even that. It's beige. It's muted colors. That's not something you can. It's not the Kardashians. That's something that's been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years. How many times? I'm just like baffled by how people react and do these things. Now, one of the reasons why this is a valid story for us here at the library is because of copyright and trademark. We do a lot of that stuff here in the library. And that's one of the key parts of this that makes me just not understand what the lawyers are trying to do other than make money. Because none of this is copyrightable or trademarkable. You could get a sales mark if you do a very specific type of thing, but none of them filed for any of that. No one on either side has filed for any of those kinds of things. And obviously, if you've tried to file a copyright for my white walls with a beige couch in front, they would laugh you out of the Library of Congress, who takes care of copyright in the United States. Make it make sense.
I think it's a big relevance when we look at AI, because AI will scan the internet to find things that you ask for. And people doing this sort of influencer thing who are using AI may even inadvertently pull in somebody else's information.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is also the Copyright Office has ruled you cannot copyright something that was produced from AI. Even there's a very, very narrow margin of how much you can use AI and still have an idea be copyrightable. For the most part, if you came up with the idea and then you used AI to create it, you've given up your right to copyright, which some artists are figuring out now, a year and a half too late. We covered a story a few weeks ago about the artist who did a photograph using AI and then did some modifications to it, and the courts all ruled no, that doesn't count. Yeah, this is just, I mean, look at this picture here. This is just a living room, an office, a space. This is not there's nothing unique. There's nothing distinctive. There's nothing that you could put anything. It just baffles me.
Well, they did know each other and they had met a couple of times, and she says that she started copying her hair color and such, but even none of that is copyrightable.
I know. You can't copyright a hairstyle. You can't do any of that. It's just... and then these people are making thousands, tens of thousands of dollars a month on product placement in their ads. So I can see why they're jealous and want it to be, but
Yeah, it's crazy.
just got to admit that there, if you're going to be Coke, there's going to be Pepsi. There's going to be Dr. Pepper. There's going to be Mr. Pibb. Do you remember Mr. Pibb? Do you remember Faygo?
Faygo now. I remember
Faygo's a Midwest
Fanta
thing.
in
There we
Germany.
go. See, yep, Fanta's the South thing. Yeah. Yeah, there's always going to be a competitor, and you just can't copyright everything. But one of the things you can copy. Now, I think we have a disagreement on this one, Sonia.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this
maybe
is
a generational thing.
could be. I mean, there could be younger people who have a disagreement with us also. But so one of the points about this story that I got was this person's a jerk because he writes on his form, Sam Altman, who is one of the founders of OpenAI and doing stuff like that. We're not talking about AI here. We're talking about personal ability and choices. His professed choice that he did in a big interview was that he wants to carry around a certain size notebook that's spiral bound with 2 different types of pens and specific things like that, which, okay, yeah, you get a little idiosyncrasy. Okay, great. That's fine. But then he's like, and so you can tear out the page, crumple it up, and throw it on the floor when you're done.
Well, when you're a billionaire, you have people following
I
after
guess so.
you to clean up.
But weren't you at least a young kid person at one point, and didn't some parent or even your maid, if that's how rich you grew up, tell you don't throw things on the floor? I mean, it's just like, it's that part of the article just infuriated me. And I'm like, okay, I got to vent this out. However, I think that this was a really good example of the idea of how do you remember things? How do you keep track of your ideas? What do you do with them? And as you started to say, I mean, there's a huge generational gap here on what happens, how it happens, and why it happens. So tell me your point of view on writing by hand versus typewriting versus how do you like to write?
Well, when I take classes, I like to make notes. And as they say in the article, you can't write that quickly. So you tend to pick and choose what you write. And you also would draw it in. I often will draw a circle with lines between different things because I'm writing so quickly to try and but I'm not catching everything. And I'm sort of writing it down the way I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me, and I agree with the article, that makes me think more when I'm taking my notes.
And my disagreement, and one, everybody should do what works best for them. I am not going to ever shame someone for doing what works for them and helps them be smarter and learn better and just learn in the first place. That is the key thing here. We want you to learn. We want you to grow and be. My theory on this, though, is part of the problem is, and the follow-up article that I found on studies that say you learn better by handwriting things out yourself as a kid. And part of that is because as a kid, just like you were saying, you have to learn how to write. So you're thinking about how you're writing and what you're doing and things. And for me, I think that the issue becomes, that's great. I mean, I write on my Kindle all the time. I've got a Kindle Scribe. I handwrite on there. I write notes. I draw. I do things. I read tons of books and PDFs and everything else. When I need to get something out, I tend to just type it. And for me, it just feels natural because I'm a touch typist. I don't think about, oh, wait, I'm interrupting and have to look at my hands and look where. I can blurt out, a couple hundred words. I'm ridiculously fast sometimes. The people in the office know when I get on a roll, they're like, Bob, stop typing. Like, sorry, we'll be quieter. But so do you feel, and here's my thing that I didn't ask you before either. What do you feel about audio learning for that?
I think it depends. One of the reasons handwriting works for me is that I'm more of a visual learner.
Okay.
And I'm not at all an audio learner. Like I basically listen to an audiobook and it puts me to sleep.
How about when you're thinking about things, though, when you're trying to get inspired and work on a project?
I usually see pictures.
Okay. Pictures. Okay. That's good. That's good. I've got friends who I will call up on the phone, or I will just talk to myself walking around the house. I do tend to get that as I'm moving. I have found that as I move and I talk, things will just crystallize in my mind. And okay, that's what I want to do. That's why I can understand the action of handwriting helps you crystallize those things and make it happen. I just disagree with the idea that you have to do handwriting to learn to do these things. And especially in our current age of transcripts for everything, I do think it's reading comprehension is so much more important than how are you going to type or even write or speak it in, because you've got all this text that you have to be able to read and verify that that's what the original intent was of your meeting, of your notes, of all those things. It's an interesting, I just think we're at this spot in history where there's like 4 or 5 different ways of doing things, and everybody wants to kind of prove their way is right. Or, these young kids, get off my lawn. We got to go back to cursive writing. And it's like, no.
I think what we need more studies, and we need to see, because people are different. Like I said, I'm much more visual. I also like to think while I walk, but I'm usually outside looking at stuff.
Yeah, there you go. See? Yeah. I'm pacing. I'll pace the house because I'll be thinking and talking, and then I'll run over to the computer and type it all in and get it all in as much as I can. But I can get excessive sometimes, and I admit to that. And I'm not telling anybody else to try and do what Bob does. Don't worry about that. One thing I do want to tell you to do is stay young.
Oh, yes.
So, final topic here for you for your holiday weekend here in the United States or wherever you are in the world: play. Stay young. Do something. It's on the quote that's on every one of my profiles everywhere. We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. Do something fun, whether that is the walking, whether that is anything and everything that you want to try out.
I still game, and I'm old.
Excellent. You are not that old. So there's a couple of things that they talk about in the article that you can do to help yourself. And let's be honest, almost all of them you've heard before.
Yes.
And all of them are fairly common sense. Don't eat too much. Don't drink too much. Get some exercise. Talk to other people, whether it's in person or online, having connections to people, doing these sorts of things. It's not a real big secret.
No. And all those people you hear of who live to 100, they're not living the world's cleanest life. They're eating ice cream and doing things, but they do have the connection.
Yeah, you do not give up ice cream. If you have to. There's alternatives. If you're lactose intolerant, there's other things out there for you that are just as great as ice cream are. I mean, you got to. Now, that being said, as we just said, eat a little bit less. Don't eat ice cream every day. But it's a good thing to have. And the one thing that I think is lacking in the United States, in particular, about why we tend to not be anywhere near the top on a lot of these categories, is the bottom one of just getting a routine checkup.
Yeah, a lot of people stopped during the pandemic. I know that I slowed down quite a bit and had to do a lot of catch up.
Yeah, no. Schedule yourself. It's the end of the year. Start scheduling now for February and March and April. Don't wait till January when everybody else is trying to do it. Schedule yourself a couple of appointments here. Help yourself get a little bit healthier, a little bit nicer, positive forward view for you, and go play.
Yeah, I think attitude is everything. You can be, if you're happy, and not happy because everything's going all great all the time, but happens to nobody.
No.
But it's your attitude to what happens that helps to keep you going.
Yeah. The world is not a happy place right now, but it's not a super deep, dark place all the time either. We're fluctuating between the two right now, and learn to regulate, learn to find another way.
Flowers grow in junkyards.
Yeah, there we go. See, Sonia's got this down. Tell us what's going on out there at the Weston Library.
Well, I wanted to talk about our adult literacy programs. We actually have at the Weston Library 3 English cafes. One on Monday, 10:30 to 11:30. One on Tuesday, 12:30 to 1:30. And one on Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. with 3 different volunteers. And we recently restarted our citizenship program on Tuesdays from 6 to 7. So
Every night at the library, folks.
yeah, you'll have at least the first 3 days of the week. We got a lot going on for you if you're interested in practicing your English, because English Cafe is English conversation. And citizenship helps prepare you for the interview, for the citizenship
test,
and the civics test.
And that's where I was just going with that. If you think you know what you're doing in the United States, it doesn't matter whether you were born here and you're a citizen and everything. You might want to stop by a class and just figure out what that civics test is all about. Here in the state of Florida, you are required to take a civics test. And we're getting some interesting people to show up that never learned these things in school. So come take a look.
Yes, our volunteers do a great job bringing people up to speed.
It's a lot of fun. Thank you again, Miss Sonia, for being here today. If there is a story or a librarian or branch you'd like to see featured on the show, reach out. creationstation@broward.org.
And
Have a great holiday.
Library.
Yeah, visit your library.
A lot of stuff for you.
Yeah, we do. We've got a ton of stuff. Come on out. We'll see everybody next week.